I've got lots of lists tonight. Lists. I've got a list of 4, a list of 8, and another list of 4. That's almost 16 lists. You can't wait. So, I think I mentioned, I don't know whether I mentioned it last Wednesday or Thursday or earlier, that I'd heard this person discussing the difference or the similarities between meaningfulness or meaning and happiness, and whether you could have meaning that didn't include happiness, or whether you could have happiness that didn't include meaning, or whether, the whole thing really. And then, as often happens with these things, I'm sure you've all experienced it as well, when you've got something that you've thought about or thinking about, suddenly a book drops off a shelf, or, and it's like, oh, there it is. So today I read an article in Tricycle magazine which was written by a very reputable, well-known and high-ranking educationist or professor who specialised in human behaviour, but is also a committed and long-standing Buddhist. And the whole thrust of it is, and what does happiness entail? In brackets, a meaningful life. So it's two separate. And what would that happiness entail? Question mark. A meaningful life is a separate after it. So the two are conflated, happiness and a meaningful life. So I'm just going to let you know what after I think 20 or 30 years of research, the kind of conclusions he'd come to. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not quoting them exactly, but his view was that he didn't think about a meaningful life in the context of a whole life. He thought about it in the context of a day in his life. What was the day like? And the questions he asked himself about whether the day had been happy were 4 questions. So that was the first 4 questions. And the questions he asked was today a day in which I avoided harmful behaviour and I maintained awareness and compassion? Number 1. Number 2, did I feel happy today? Number 3, did I maintain the wish to understand the nature of life, relationships, and the nature of the mind? Number 4, what did I bring to the world? If all those questions were answered yes, then he reckoned he had a happy, meaningful day. So read them again.
Yeah.
Okay. You can measure your own day today. Did you? Was it a day of avoiding harmful behaviour? Did I maintain awareness and compassion? Did I feel happy today? Did I maintain the wish to understand the nature of life, relationships, and the nature of mind? 4, what did I bring to the world? So that would be a perfect day if all those were fulfilled. But I guess even if you only had 1 or 2, it would. Well, I guess this is the quandary for me. If he had number 2 was, did I feel happy today? And the answer was yes. Then the other questions are irrelevant, I guess, because he felt happy. But the thrust of what he then goes on to say was that you can be happy on a momentary basis, but it doesn't mean that provides the solution for long-term happiness. So he then goes on to say that, and I think we'll all recognise this, that most of us, we've heard about all the things that don't bring us happiness, and are usually external things. But we doubt that, and over again we try to extract things from our external environment which will bring us happiness. And he talks about status, sex, financial and emotional security as being pretty crucial for people. His view is that doesn't, even though we keep trying it, and we keep thinking it will, financial and emotional security, status, etc., we believe that they will bring us happiness. In fact, they don't. So he instead asks, how can I flourish? How can I live in a way that I find truly fulfilling, happy, joyful and meaningful? How can I flourish, I think is the crucial. How can I flourish? Anyway, he goes on then to list what I didn't even know existed, but apparently in Buddhism there is something called the 8 mundane concerns. This is the list of 8 mundane concerns, which are listed, and there's nothing wrong with them, but in the Buddhist tradition, they don't bring happiness. So I'll read the 8 mundane concerns. They're all opposites. So the first one is the acquisition of wealth and not losing it. So there's 2. The acquisition of stimulus-driven pleasures and avoiding pain. And there's another 2. Praise and avoiding abuse or ridicule. There's the 2 more mundane concerns. And the final mundane concerns are a desire for a good reputation and fearing the contempt or rejection of others. Oh. How many of us have got these 8 mundane concerns? I'll read them again. The acquisition of wealth and not losing it, the acquisition of stimulus-driven pleasures and avoiding pain, praise and avoiding abuse or ridicule, and the desire for a good reputation and fearfulness of contempt or rejection. Is anybody free of any of them?
I can claim that I'm 100% A+.
You're with them, okay. So what he goes on to say, there's nothing wrong with them, they're okay. But pragmatically, they don't bring happiness. So, I bet you're keen. Sorry, Joe.
They do when you're doing them.
Oh yeah, they do when you're doing them. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you're lying on a beach in the Barbados, and you've got cocktails on the table, and the sun's out, and the beach surfs in. You feel happy. But if you did it every day, or maybe, Joe, you'd love it, When that courier comes in on one of those scooters with the dope, Okay, so he then addresses, this is just by the way really, he addresses how we can all, I think we talked about it, how particularly at Crosby, we talked about how depressing the news is and how it's hard not to be upset by it. And he makes the really good point that the news, we all know this. I'm telling you what you already know. The news is just really selective, and the news is chosen for the degree to which it will sell newspapers or TV adverts. And it does seem that the best sellers are the news stories that appeal to our most base instincts. That seems to be the deal. So we get the kind of news that most people want, which isn't very nice news. In fact, I think there's even been newspapers based on good news that just haven't sold. They've folded in a couple of weeks. So anyway, so this is what he says. In Buddhism, we say, yes, there is an ocean of suffering. So it's not bad to show that there's anger, hatred, delusion, and greed in the world, which is what the newspapers show. In a way, the media presents some very important facts. Given that we can look for different emotional responses in ourselves, ignoring the newspapers, we can look for different emotional responses. We can, he's saying, escape from cynicism, depression, anger and apathy. And here's the kick. And the way we do this, and the way to be happy, is by cultivating the 4 immeasurables. So what we had the 8 mundane concerns, the 4 questions to ask yourself has it been a good day, and then finally, how do we kick into a different way of experiencing the world? And he calls them the 4 immeasurables. They give us a route out of depression, greed, anger, and cynicism. So should I read you the 4 immeasurables? So you're all keen to know. Okay. Number 1. When we see suffering and the causes of suffering, then it's time to exercise compassion. That's number 1. Number 2. When we see people striving diligently to find happiness, that's the time when we should give them encouragement and loving kindness. 3. When something has happened that's really lovely or wonderful for somebody, then we exercise empathetic joy. How many of us can do that? Number 4, number 3 is rejoicing in other people's happiness and virtue. Number 4 is, and then there are disasters like natural earthquake suffering. Then we can decide to maintain equanimity in the face of that, and at the same time take on the suffering that causes, and if we can, respond by offering back joy. So these are pretty tough things, aren't they? The 4 immeasurables. They're all about cultivating, it seems to me, care and concern and the share of joy in other people's success, and empathy and sympathy with the awful things that happen to people. So I just summarised them. Number 1 is compassion. Number 2 is loving kindness for folk who are doing their best. Number 3 is empathetic joy. And number 4 is accepting the suffering of the world and offering back what joy, hope and sympathy we can find. So that's pretty, so it's bringing a Buddhist perspective on how to lead a life which is fulfilling, I guess. But I'm sure when I read them all out, all of us are a pretty long way off, aren't we?
Who's the guy?
I've got the article, but I will bring his name. In fact, I could even put the article on a link to it on
Instagram, Facebook.
on our next what we call it now.
Digest.
No, it's
a newsletter.
It's a newsletter now. It's been digested, become a newsletter. But how do you feel about? How do you respond to that? How does it feel? Does it feel like you're well off the mark, or is it inspirational, or does it just go over your heads?
Sounds about right.
About right, yeah.
There's some good stuff there.
Yeah.
A good Buddhist to-do list.
Yeah. The thing that stood out for me that I see is hard for most folk is sharing in the joy of others. Particularly if they're in the same field or they've been buddies for years, or that seems to be for a lot of us. It's hard.
Depends what it is, though.
Pardon?
It depends what it is.
Depends what it is, yeah. Yeah.
Sensei, can I just, for me, just like initial reaction to it, it seems like those things, do you kind of manufacture it, or so if someone's in a good space and you share with their joy, it should come from a natural place.
Why?
Or it could.
Why?
Because then it's if it's kind of like synthetic or just manufactured, is it coming from
No, it isn't. But how would you like it? How would you feel if you had something lovely in your life
Yeah.
and you couldn't share it with the person? You could just see their resentment, or they said, "Fantastic, Paul, great." Inside, they may have been feeling jealous or whatever, but that's a better response, isn't it? And I'm sure that they feel better for making that response. So I think we can act as if, and it can kick us into a different place. And if we stay in that place of always being authentic and honest with our feelings, then I think we can cause harm.
Sensei, I would like to agree with you in that.
Yeah.
When I was in my final year medical school, I don't think I am now. I wasn't somebody who did lots of emotion, really. I thought I was a pretty dry person, and I was, as I was approaching my finals examination, this is going to sound horrible, but I thought I would have to fake it to the patient.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, and this is also in relation to what Paul said, there is something in the form of kind of doing things, I think, kind of holding the hands, offering tissue, saying, "How are you?" And I don't quite understand how, and I personally find it quite miraculous, but over the years, I actually found that I became more and more empathetic.
Good, thank you.
But at the same time, it's easy to have empathy at the beginning of the day, but towards the end, you kind of run out.
Yeah.
Sorry, I ran out of empathy.
It is an ongoing struggle for sure. Yeah. But if we find ourselves stuck in that, because we can all find ourselves stuck in a circle, in a self-fulfilling circle of cynicism, of anger, of isolation, of all those things. We can stay in there, and it's okay if that's what you want. But if you want to kick yourself out of it, you do have to obviously make a choice to take a different view, even if you're not feeling it. What else are you going to do? You're waiting for the universe to come along with some, gift to you that opens up your heart. No, it's not going to happen.
I think for me it starts with something like this list, that you actually put your attention onto it. And, maybe you haven't realized that you can't feel joy when something good happens to other people, but when you realize it,
put it into action.
You can put it into action, so that's the turning point for me.
Yeah. And and it's true, I find it true certainly, that the world will respond to you in a way which is reflective of how you're feeling. And if you're feeling cynical or pissed off or angry or whatever, then that's what you'll get back.
Yeah,
and also,
for me anyway, if I'm feeling any of those things, maybe I need some empathy from me.
For yourself,
to start with.
Thank you for saying that, because that's number one, isn't it?
There's a reason I don't share in somebody's joy. Maybe it's because I'm thinking there's a scarcity of resources or something, now they've got it and I'm not going to. Those kind of false perceptions. So maybe I need a bit of empathy first, and then I might be able to extend a bit.
No, I agree with you, because if you can't exercise all these things for yourself, then it's much harder to do for someone else, because you don't feel worthy, do you? But for all of us it's a struggle, so don't get kind of down if you can't do it. But for me, it's intention. It's always intention that counts, not whether you succeed. It's intention.
Sensei, I mentioned taking out hand for a while. So
okay, no, you haven't.
I once heard taking out hand. give a talk on this, and he particularly in reference to joy, he said, forget empathy. Joy is just joy. Joy arises, and the way he was talking about these things, about metta, loving kindness and compassion, equanimity, and he was saying these are the benefits of practice. These are the benefits of sitting. They will, being one's authentic self, these things will arise. And he was sort of pointing, I think, against the idea that you can do it as a moral practice. Today I'm going to practice being compassionate. Today I'm going to practice being joyful, because that is a danger of not being authentic to where I actually am at that time.
Or it could be egotistical, can't it?
Where it comes up, But I just say as well, when we chant sentient beings are numberless, I mean, I suppose all of these things, they are guidelines, aren't they? They're not an end point to say, right, today I've felt compassionate and equanimity, and therefore I've done it. Any more than I'm going to save all sentient beings. They're a direction to travel in. More than.
I think maybe he was speaking to people. I don't mean to be direct. I don't mean to disagree with you, but maybe he was speaking to people who are more developed than we are, because they're already. We're still struggling with breaking the circle. We're still struggling with. We have to start somewhere. I agree. If it arises spontaneously, that's lovely. That would be the best. But in this article, he even says, that people can meditate in order to serve the 8 mundane concerns. People can come and sit just because it's like having a great coffee or whatever, because it makes them feel good. So you can't, there's different levels. But I think the important thing is that finally in the article he says, this is an experience over many years of not, he says, and when you see how important Dharma is in the face of adversity, then it becomes a priority. You let it saturate your life. That's when Dharma really takes on its power, when it's not confined to a meditation session, when it permeates your life. And I think that all this guy all he's saying is a starting point for allowing it to permeate our lives. And it's for me, it's absolutely pragmatic. You apply these things, and there's no moral high ground, or I'm a better person than you, or whatever. It's does acting in this way help with our well-being and help with the well-being of the people around us? And if it does, then great. And if it doesn't, don't do it. So it's not like a religious or moral. It's just it's a.
Well, it makes us aware, doesn't it?
It's a practice. It's a practice of awareness.
It's good to articulate. I like those 8 mundane things, because it articulates what
to
might
say,
be doing all day and not even realising.
Yeah, it's nice when somebody lists stuff in them.
So somebody said, if I won the lottery and I got this sort of super yacht, the very first thing I'd be doing, I'd be checking it for scratches to send it back.
Well, I met somebody today for breakfast, and they just arrived in a taxi cab, and it was a brand new cab. And it turns out that the cabbie, his nightman, they have a nightman and a dayman. I think it's called the collar. Is it called the collar? The guy on the night collar, along with 10 other cab drivers, had won £3.5 million each. And the cab driver that had won the £3.5 million had bought his day driver this brand new cab. But 2 months down the line, he's so bored that he's asked the dayman, can he do 2 nights? And what he's got he told Dave Knopop, the guy I was with, that what he's looking forward to, what he's going to do with his money, he's going to take 10 of his mates on a booze up to Benidorm. So, 3.5 million doesn't guarantee you an interesting life. You can buy your mate a good card, which I thought was wonderful. Well, that's probably worth more joy. Okay, thank you. Thank you.